So let me just go ahead and put that on the screen as I pull up Paulo here. All right. So this again, this is local right here in Bremerton and Port Orchard is really the kind of focal point of this group here. But these are bills that need your support. They're all listed. Like I said, we're curating this so you don't have to go digging around for it. If you have a bill that you think is important that should be on this list, you can reach out and let us know. But yeah, we're trying to make this as easy as possible for you to provide your advocacy and support. So it's a big deal. All right. How are you doing? Thank you for coming on. Again, you're so awesome for coming on in such short notice.
Oh, I'm good. I'm new to this to Restream, so I don't know if I've got my setup for from the good mic. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, no, you sound good.
All right. Yeah, this is exciting. I've never been on before, but learned a lot from that last guest, and really interested in learning more about civil survival. So what's going on?
Well, what I was hoping that you would do is, with G2 and we've joined Front and Centered, and I was hoping that you would tell folks, who and what Front and Centered is, what kind of advocacy work that we're into, because it's we're part of
That's right.
Front and
That's
Centered,
right.
so we're super excited about that in regards to transportation equity and transportation justice. And if you want to expand that, because Front and Center does way more than that, then that's okay too. But let's start there if that's okay.
All right. So let's see. Hopefully I can do this justice. Are you still there?
Oh, I'm still here.
Okay. I did something
I'm
wrong.
just giving you the whole screen.
Okay. All right. So transportation is one of the programs. Transportation justice is one of the programs that Front and Center does, but there's so much more. We are a statewide coalition of organizations and groups that are by, for, and led by people of color. And our main focus as a coalition is to work on climate justice. And, there's over 70 organizations that are members from all over the state. Organizations like Gather Together, Grow Together, like Kitsap Black Student Union, like Eastside Baptist Church, like Utopia, LGBTQ Pacific Islander Center in Kent, and all over the state, including Eastern Washington. And our work is focused on pollution prevention, on energy justice, and transportation justice. And I am the transportation and land use policy lead, and I help to support this amazing group of people that run our transportation justice working group. And Marwan is one of the members of that group and is doing incredible work in that space also. Marwan, you want to plug Transit Equity Day? I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this Saturday is Transit Equity Day. This will be the first year that we celebrate it. So in partnership with New Horizon Ministries and Kitsap Black Student Union, G2 and the Conduit are going to host the event. It happens to be Rosa Parks' birthday, and the Kitsap Black Student Youth are going to perform and educate us on why transportation equity is important. And there's a project that they're involved in. We actually received a grant from Front and Center, so we're super excited about that to help us do the work. It sounds like hyperbole that the youth are our future, but that's not cap. It's true, and so we're going to empower them, and so they can advocate for themselves and their needs. Many folks here in Kitsap County are place bound. They're going to raise their kids here. They're going to live here, and they're impacted by transportation here. And if you were watching the City Council meeting yesterday, you heard me testify during public comment to City Council and the mayor about how transportation equity is so important and how how much more critical it is post-COVID when you think about folks having to work multiple jobs because housing costs are so high, food costs is so high, eggs, right? Fuel, all of these things, and wages aren't keeping up with the cost of inflation, and folks are having to work 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. Well, if there's no bus service on Saturday, if it stops working at 8:30, running at 8:30 at night, how are people supposed to get to that second and third job and make those ends meet? So they can't keep up. Then you have desperation, and some of those folks are gonna fall into the category of the last guest that we had on, and now they're just as impacted, basically because they feel like they have no other choice or any other option, right? So we can head these things off at the past. We can reverse these injustices that exist and give people an equitable foot so that they can take care of themselves and their family. And this is really what it's all about. We don't want our children to inherit a world that's going to be harder for them to live in. And that's kind of speaking for myself on that. But I think that is kind of the voice of many that do this work. That is that a pretty good synopsis. So Saturday, the mayor, our Mayor Wheeler, is going to come out and he's going to proclaim Transportation Equity Day in the city of Bremerton. So it was short notice and he jumped right in on that. And so we're super excited. I've never done that before. So shout out to the Cashapp Black Student Union and Jewel Shepherd Sampson for her work and for the youth, of course. So it's 2 to 4 at 4040 Wheaton Way, Suite 203, which is New Horizon. For folks of you that are local and listening, you know where it is because that's where we have our pancake breakfast every fourth Wednesday. It's not going to be pancakes. It's going to be spaghetti, fried chicken, salad. We're going to roll out the red carpet. We're going to have a good time. So hopefully everyone will come. We have some people coming as far as Bellevue, but it's going to be a live broadcasted. So please tune in. It's this Saturday.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing that it's coming together. The thing that I've heard people say is that Rosa Parks sparked the civil rights movement by fighting to have a seat on the bus. And today we have to struggle to make sure that there even is a bus because of all of the budget cuts, because of the impacts that that COVID has had in transit. And I just want to sort of equate transit to some of the basic needs that we have in the society, like electricity, for example. There are places, not in America mostly, where they say there's no electricity on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
There's no electricity after 8:30 p.m. And people have real hardships because of that. And the work that we're doing at transit front and centered is to do everything that we can to advocate for transit and safe sidewalks and safe places for people to roll their wheelchairs and bike facilities to be seen as basic human rights, that to be able to be safe and not take your life into your own hands when you go and get groceries or when you go to school or when you go to work is not a luxury. Is not something that some people should have and other people should go without because they're black or brown or low income or because they haven't had the opportunities that other people may have. This is a basic thing that we need to provide. So, at Front and Centered, we follow this really simple recipe, right? We're saying we need to assert rights. We need to show where those rights are being violated. And then we need to demand that rights are met through advocacy, through policy, through other means. And so when it comes to transit, we started to do some research and we passed a proviso last year that asked the legislature to go out and count. Well, how many people do have access to transit that's frequent, that's reliable, that's 7 days a week, that comes every 15 minutes, that allows you to this is crazy to think, that allows you to take the bus to work and then come home on the bus on the same day. And it turns out that the result of that is it's 7%.
Wow.
7% of the people in Washington have access to a bus that's just a basic, reliable bus route within a half mile of their house that runs every 15 minutes that can get you to the places that you need to go. And so our next piece of work is to say, wow, that's not good. We need to do a whole lot better than that. And so we don't have a bill number yet, but we're very hopeful that we will have a bill number soon. And Jeff, if you want to go ahead and share the tiny URL link, this is a description of what the bill that we're calling Better Transit Sooner would do. Is it would establish targets for the state as a whole to get from 7% people with access to frequent transit to in 4 years so to in 4 years 14% access to frequent transit, and 4 years after that 28% access to frequent transit, and 4 years after that 56% of the people with access to transit. I realized as I'm saying this, Marwan, that I have a typo here. I have 24, 28, 32, and it should be 26, 30, 34. So I will fix that. It would be great if we could do this in 2 years, but I think we need more time than that. And what the bill does is it sets these targets. It directs the legislature to create a fund for transit service. One of the things a lot of people don't know is that while transit agencies may have gotten quite a bit of money from the various COVID rescue packages, for most agencies, almost all of that money is capital. And you know what? A bus without a driver is not going to do anybody any good.
Mm-hmm.
You need, it's transit is almost like schools, right? It's great if we have fancy school buildings, but if there are no teachers, nobody's going to be learning. So this bill then also funds a study so that we can identify what the best solutions for rural transit are. All right. So that's what I have. I also want to show people the transit access map, which is a tool that Front and Center built late last year. And that's watransitaccessmap.org. And it lets you find out in your community how many people have access to frequent and reliable transit.
Paulo, do you have time to take us through a little exercise?
Yeah, let's do it.
I love it. Okay. So what should I type in here? Kitsap County?
Yeah, let's do Kitsap County. Let's see. Does the county come up? Oh, it does. Yeah. Jeff wants MLK Way. So
Oh yeah, can we drill down to zip code?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But so let's do Kitsap County, it came up, and it shows you that you have 2 routes that run every 15 minutes. But then Marwan, click the hamburger at the top, the 3 bars, yeah. And now click on the second one to the left, access to high frequency transit. Yeah, right there. Okay, so what that does is it shows you all the routes, and if you scroll down, you'll see that in Kitsap County, 1% of people have access to frequent transit. And keep scrolling down, then it'll show you, well, here's a breakdown by race. And
wow.
So there are many, many people that have no transit access at all. So if you look at, for example, Hispanic or Latino, and you hover over that, it'll show you the percentage, and hover over the black bar further to the right. Yeah, there you go. So 35% of Latinos in Kitsap County, zero transit.
Zero transit.
Zero transit, no transit at all.
Wow.
And so let's go to the very top where it says compare locations. It's next to about.
All the way at the top?
Yeah. Go up. No, just.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
I see it.
Okay, and now enter King County. Let's compare.
Wow.
And yeah, it's funny that the map takes you to the center of the county, which is not. Yeah, there you go. And now scroll down, and it'll give you a side by side. So, Kitsap, we have 1% access to frequent transit, and King County, you have 35. And then, and this is the 35 is just at rush hour, and then we have it broken down by full day, and we have it broken down by late night. Right. So,
And
the
Paulo, just to note here, where this says 0% for Kitsap County, um, for the last 3 weeks, I'm driving again. So I'm taking one of our clients to work. Um, she is an I won't say elderly. She's older than I am. Has a cane, is working a graveyard shift. There's no transportation, and when she was taking a cab or an Uber, it was costing her like 3 times the amount, and she's working a service job that it doesn't exactly pay a lot, and then she just reported her rent's going up by $300. And so this is what folks are facing, and if you don't think that these things don't tie together, they do, right? We're talking about justice reform, right? Again, if I feel like I don't have a choice, then I may be forced to make some other decisions, right? We're also talking about housing and homelessness. If I can't pay my ever increasing rent and bills, then my housing becomes insecure and I can fall into homelessness, especially if I don't have friends and family that I can stay with. And even if I do, it doesn't put their lease in jeopardy because everyone could get evicted because you've got me in the house and I'm not supposed to be there, right?
mm,
So these things are all connected and it's tremendously important. I just wanted to add that, Paulo.
yeah, I really get the sense, Marwan, that you're really seeing this in the front lines, right? So here's somebody who, but for the ride that she's getting from you, is is basically what we call transportation insecure. Is going to be missing a shift. Is going to be missing a important doctor's appointment. And something else that I think it's important for folks to remember, and it's easy for those of us who have this privilege, which it really is a privilege to be able to afford to have a car, to be able-bodied enough to drive a car, that there's a third of the people in Washington state who don't have that. And yet we treat this as the price of admission to be able to participate in to
Oh, did you want
participate.
me to keep that up? Sorry about that.
Yeah, yeah. So I was thinking. So the other thing that so scroll down a little bit, or scroll up rather a little bit. I just wanted to show also. So here's you have side by side, and the red is percent with access to frequent transit. The blue is with access to less frequent transit, and the black is access to no transit. Right, and you can see these are really really stark differences. Right. And yes, Kitsap is more rural, and yes, it'll always be a bit different. But there is no way that were this. I guess what I keep thinking about is if this was access to another basic service, you take your pick: electricity, water, indoor plumbing. We would not stand for these kinds of disparities, right? Um, so the chart that you're seeing here is, well, like I just said, the red is the percentage of the population. If you scroll up down a little bit, you'll be able to see that. Oh no, the other direction. Yeah. So what you have in the left is Kitsap County, and what you have on the right is King County. And ultimately, the root of these differences, of these big disparities, is that we fund transit service locally. And so what that means is that in King County, folks have voted to tax themselves to pay for transit, and they have more means. but they also have they've been able to align their politics in a way that says transit is very important. Now, if we funded schools the way we fund transit, there would be tons of places in Washington state that had no schools. Period.
Wow.
It'd be places, well, it'd be like, oh, Kitsap County, kids don't go to school over there. Right? It'd be like, oh, in Vancouver, Washington, they don't have schools. They don't do that. It's a local decision. What, they decided not to have schools. And it's essentially what we do with transit, right?
Well,
And
Paulo, let me say this. Let me jump in really quick.
yeah,
You may not know this, but our county created a community needs assessment. So
mm,
Kitsap Community Resources, in conjunction with the United Way and Kitsap Public Health and others, worked on these questions and deployed it throughout the county. I think they had somewhere like 6,600 responses, and then they did focus groups after to get more into the weeds of what was important to them. And in most of the data showed that in many of the focus groups and in the data, transportation was like the second most important thing, and it was shocking to everyone. And here this data is supporting this, and this is an outside agency, if you will, outside of Kitsap County, putting this analysis tool together, and it's like, yeah, it supports it and it aligns. So now you've got the stories from the actual residents, you've got the data to show exactly what it looks like. It's like, all right, so we've got to take care of this.
that's right. That's right. So another so Jeff is asking 80% of Black near high frequency rush hour traffic in Kitsap. Well, we're not talking about traffic. We're talking about bus service here. And who has access to a bus that is frequent and reliable? So no, in what we're seeing here is that very, very few people in Kitsap County can count on a reliable bus route, and that it's 78% have access to transit of some kind, but may not be very frequent, may not be reliable in that you can get to work and come back. I want to
Well,
show
let
you
me
something
Let me
else.
ask you really, really
Yeah,
quick, Paulo, before we move on from this. I'm not sure if you know the layout of Kitsap County, but we're on a peninsula and we're really spread out.
right.
So Bremerton, I believe we're gonna have a big pocket of Black citizens, but then we've got, Poulsbo, that's a 25-minute drive, and Bainbridge Island, which is an hour. We've got Seabeck, that's like I don't even know where that is, 25 minutes east or west or wherever that is. We've got almost up to Gig Harbor and Deep Port Orchard, where you'll probably find more white people. And I think that's, to me, why this number would show that 46% of white people, which is almost the highest, right? I think what we have American Indian here at 1% higher, are don't have access to that transit because this county is so spread out. And so black people tend to live in more urban areas and downtown areas, so they will have more access during that rush hour, closer to the ferry and things like that, but in Seabeck and everywhere else. So am I kind of interpreting that correctly? Because that's how I'm looking at that.
No, I think that that's often the case, that where in fact, it turns out that higher income people often have less access to transit because they tend to live in the suburbs where it's very difficult to serve with transit. So if you go to view population by race, and up at the top of what we're seeing in the screen, up a little bit more, yeah,
I
and pull
see.
that down and do by income. Yeah. So what you see here, the folks that are making 100,000 or more have less access to transit than the folks that are making very little money. But still, this is cold comfort because almost nobody has any transit.
Right.
So this is, and if we want to we can enter a location also and look at Bremerton specifically.
Yeah. How do we do that?
Go to the top. Um, and
Hamburger.
just enter a location. Yeah, just say Bremerton. Yeah, there you go. And you can, I guess, go to compare locations, and let's turn off. Oh no, keep King County, I suppose. See, so what you see here, this it's really cool, where you can see the transit routes color coded by frequency. So the purple ones are your middle. Oh, I think the green ones are the ones that come, maybe once every couple of hours. And I think if you scroll down a little bit, we're missing what. Oh yeah, the purple ones are the really infrequent ones. The red ones are the most frequent. And then underneath that, you can see the time frame, and you can say, well, what does it look like all day? What does it look like late night? What does it look like in the weekends? So if you click weekends, that's going to be interesting to see when you look at what does weekend service look like full day? Yeah, there you go.
Pretty much
So
all purple.
yeah. So it all turned purple, and what you see in the east side of Puget Sound is you continue to have a lot of service.
And you've
Right.
got red here, which is most
Yeah.
frequent. You've got a lot of blue. Look at these arterials here going over to Mercer Island and to Bellevue, respectively.
Yeah.
And something that's important here, and many of us know that live here. Many of us are working low wage service jobs, right? How do you get to work on a Saturday and a Sunday? If we change this to weekdays, and we go to late night,
It might, yeah, it really drops
you
out,
know,
right?
okay, so how do I get home from work from Applebee's
Yeah. You
or
know,
Lowe's and it closes at 9? How do I get home?
let's see if we can close the King County one so we can drill into so go to compare locations. And I think that you can
Cancel, right?
cancel, yeah, or clear comparison. Yeah. So now, Marwan, if you go and you zoom in to any of these routes, you can click on the route, and you can get some information about what. Yeah, there you go. So let's click, and let's see what comes up when you click on the route itself.
All right, so Jeff wanted ML King, so this is down where ML King is here.
Mm,
Park Avenue, I think that's
yeah.
about right. 6th and that's
Yeah. So
Burwell.
what happens when you click on one of those routes, or you click on the? Oh yeah. So look at that. At rush hour during weekdays, it's more than every 2 hours. 199 minutes is more than every 3 hours. And then 700 minutes, I can't even do that math.
I'm like doing the math on that. Okay, 600 minutes is 10 hours. So we're talking about almost 12
So,
hours there, right?
so essentially, that once a night, that
Wow.
serves. So, I my hope in making this tool was to be able to do exactly what we're doing, Marwan, and with
Mhm.
Jeff's help too. It's good that he's peppering in with questions. Is to be able to make it clear to folks what service do they have, so that when they go and you speak to the mayor on during Transit Equity Day and saying, great, we love this proclamation, but do you realize that we have a bus every 700 minutes uh, during late night? How are people supposed to get home from work?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I hope that and this is the kind of thing that's a little bit invisible, right? Because it's like, well, there's a bus, I guess, but it's people. Here's the other thing that I think is something that I really hope that more and more people that rely on the bus because they either have a disability, or because they don't drive for whatever other reason. I hope that those folks can come on shows like the Conduit, or have the opportunity to participate in discussions about transit, get roles in transit boards, get roles, get elected to office, because the honest truth is that they have a special knowledge, they have special expertise in navigating the system that is half built, that's not very well thought out, that's missing critical pieces. That, imagine folks that use a wheelchair, or that are, blind or low vision, and are navigating these streets here, oftentimes that don't have curb cuts, that don't have sidewalks, where there's a long time there, we've built roads that in the middle of cities where cars are traveling 45 miles an hour, and there's three lanes of traffic in each direction. So these folks that have figured out, and because of necessity, how to navigate this world that we've built, that is almost entirely geared to serve people that happen to have the privilege and the advantage of owning and being able to drive a car. These folks really understand what needs to be done, and what needs to be improved, and we need to listen to them, right? We need to really understand from them, well, where should the frequent transit go? How do bus stops need to be redesigned? How important are sidewalks really? All of these things are, to be totally honest about it, I've never had to cross the street with my eyes closed,
Mm.
right? That is a really important piece of knowledge that somebody that's designing cities needs to have. And we're leaving all kinds of expertise, all kinds of real solutions on the table by not making those voices sort of, I'm going to drop it, front and center in our our discussions, in our solutions for how to do this better.
And while you're speaking, one of the things that I don't consider, because I don't walk to get around, is just how far one light is to the next for people that do want to cross. So now they need to jaywalk to get across Warren Avenue, for those of you that are, here in Kitsap County, and what that is, right? And you could become just as impacted on that because you're jaywalking. So if they want to, jam you up, they can. But,
Exactly.
for someone who can't walk great distances, or like you said, um, or have some challenges that they're navigating while they're doing that, that's really tough to walk, a good quarter mile to cross over, just to backtrack to go to the other direction. So, just a lot of thoughts there. One of the things that I wanted to just show there, and I just wanted to put this on the screen here. Let me see if that pops up. Is, one of my quick solutions is, this is the ferry schedule for Bremerton to Seattle. And as you can see, we have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight ferry crossings that leave Seattle daily that come here to Bremerton, and eight that go to Seattle. And at the minimum, at a start, if they just did one cycle of the bus for every route, then at least citizens can say, you know what? Yeah, it's going to take me 2 hours, but I'm going to be able to get that bus. Like, how do people get home if they're on the 1250 ferry? When we were
Right.
doing concessions for the Seahawks games and we'd get on the ferry and come back to the other side, it's the 1250 ferry. We're getting back at 1:50 a.m.
Mm.
There's no bus service, so it's either a cab, or you got some transportation, or you have friends and family that can come pick you up, right? We need public transportation for that. Again, people don't just work in the county, but they're working outside of the county because they're gonna get paid more, and, well, everyone can't work here, right? There's not enough work here in the county that pays a livable wage or a family wage. So, at the minimum, a start would be to run one full circuit of bus service every time a ferry comes in. I
That's
I I think
right.
that's a great start. What are your thoughts on that, Paulo?
Yeah, it's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's at a minimum, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, um,
But what you have is a bridge to nowhere, right? You literally
exactly.
have
Or leaving people stranded, right? It's that same
yeah,
thing, right?
you got a
If
ferry that comes from Seattle, and it's like, all
yeah,
right, figure it out, or wait 6 hours until the buses start running. Like, what are we talking about here?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. I heard I was at a conference and I heard a gentleman from Europe who was talking about the that he thought it was just crazy that for Amtrak, for example, for the last 60 years since Amtrak was created, the conversation was always on, well, Amtrak needs to pay its own way, Amtrak needs to recover all its costs, blah blah blah. And and in Europe they have trains. They have lots and lots of trains. And he says the point of good transportation is not to make money, it's because of the positive things that it creates in society. It's because of all of the things that you're talking about, Marwan, is that it allows people to go and get to a job where they earn more money, to get to school where they're going to, I don't know, learn how to be a scientist and find a cure for cancer. That's one positive outcome of a reliable transit route could be a cure to cancer, right? But we have this, and it's the same thing with roads, right? We don't say everybody who uses this road has to pay for every penny of it. We have them because they support these basic needs in society. And so I think that's what to go back to Transit Equity Day, it's so important, is that we since the 1980s, somehow somebody, it was Reagan or somebody who was advising Reagan or something, came up with this crazy formula that says that out of every dollar of federal funding for transportation, 80% needs to go to highways and 20% for everything else.
Mhm.
And so, all right, so maybe that made sense for a short window of time where you're building out lots of highways, but we're done with that. We've built every highway we need pretty much. We need to maintain the ones that we have, but now we can see that there are tons of places where there's no transit. There's tons of places where there's just a little bit of transit, and we're leaving people stranded. And yet we're hamstrung by these crazy, outdated, uh, sort of arbitrary rules, and you can't help but think that some of the thinking behind that has to do with who mostly depends and rides transit: people of color, lower income people, and who needs a quick ride from the suburbs to downtown. And the ferries are that as well, right?
Mhm.
So the ferries are incredibly expensive to run. Probably the most expensive public transportation, I don't know, in the world. But we do it, right? We do it because it's important for keeping the state connected together, because we have this really amazing geography where there's Puget Sound and the peninsula. And it's the same thing with a basic transit route. It's the same thing with light rail, with other kinds of transit. We need to build a good system because people are going to depend on it, because it's going to make a difference in people's lives in terms of their ability to just lead a full life. I mean, there's no really other way to say this. It's these researchers at University of Michigan and at another think tank that I'm not remembering right now developed a really interesting tool called the Transportation Security Index.
Mhm.
And a lot of people might be familiar with the Food Security Index, where
Yes.
the Department of Agriculture and Department of Health, at the federal level, they use this to design programs like SNAP, like food stamps and other things. And what these researchers did, basically, is to create something very similar to that for transportation. And they've run the survey once, and what they found is that about a quarter of the people, and it's not a surprise when you think that about a third of Washingtonians are non-drivers, but a quarter of the people in America are what we call transportation insecure. So that means that they are missing work appointments. They are not leaving the house because they don't feel safe. They are late to work. They're losing employment. They forego an opportunity. Maybe they did get into community college. Maybe they can get to their school, or they did get into the state school, or did get that job, but just can't make it
Well,
because
Paulo, let me just say, that was one of the reasons why I started transportation with G2. I ran a program at Olympic College, which was called Steps to Success, and during that program, it was for non-traditional students, folks that were coming back, because they were just as impacted in coming to school, non-traditional learners, adult learners, single parents, things of that nature. And the two things that were the big barriers, well, there's three. Childcare was a huge one.
Mm,
Food insecurity was a big one. Folks their diet was the vending machines, which is tremendously expensive. And then transportation was the third. And so in a 10-week course or an 8-week summer course, you missing out because your transportation isn't adequate, can't put gas in the car, right? All the different things, you're not a licensed driver. I mean, there were so many different factors that went in with that, and it was a real barrier to those folks getting their certificate or their degrees and moving on. And that is one of the great equalizers is education. And that's how I was able to change my life was education. And so, that was really the chief reason why transportation was that thing that was like, this is the void that we need to fill. No one is doing this in Kitsap County. We've got to do this first. And we also chose food, right? So those are the two things that we tackled. And the need is ever growing, right? We can't have enough vehicles and drivers, honestly.
right. No, I mean it would be too much to try to serve that as a nonprofit, I think, right? It's I mean, it's excellent that you can do the trips that you are making and helping the people that you are helping, but this is society needs to provide this, right? So
Well, yeah, and
that's why I say, Marwan, I think that of all people, you see this most directly, that, like you're saying, that people are they're missing out on really important things in their lives, and it's costing society so much, right? Can you imagine the lost potential from all of the folks that you're talking about? How what a difference it would make to have that 10-week program on your, you know, uh, obviously learning that content, but also being able to show an employer. I showed up every day for 10 weeks at this program, and I'm a dependable person, and to so here's the thing, ultimately we know how to do this. There are really good people in Kitsap Transit. There are really good people in King County Metro. There's really good people at WashDOT. Um, it's not that hard to run a bus route. I mean, it's a great job to be a transportation planner, to be a bus driver, to be a dispatcher. We we know how to do all of these things. It's just that our voices have been so easy to ignore, because again, it goes back to the person that's riding the bus, Black, indigenous, person of color who's working several jobs, is not the first person that elected officials have in mind when they think about, well, what are we going to do next?
Mhm.
Who do we have to, who do I have to answer to next? And so that's why, in that recipe that I said, assert rights and say, hey, this is a basic right. Number 2, show where this right is being violated. And number 3, make a lot of noise about it. And that's what we're hoping. That's why I'm so inspired by the work that you're doing and the work that the other folks in the front and center transportation justice working group are doing is, people are saying, I'm fed up with this. We need to do better. We need to.
Yeah,
We need to do better
absolutely.
at this, right? And hopefully, people like you will run for office, get elected, that somebody will come up and do the same thing in Kent, and really change this conversation, because there's the only thing that we don't have is the political will. There is
Mm.
plenty of money. There is plenty of knowledge here. There is plenty of experience. We just need to do it.
And Paulo, I would say is do not let people tell us that there's not enough money to tackle homelessness, food insecurity, healthcare, transportation. We're the richest country in the history of mankind. We
Right.
can do all of these things. So it's we print money. We can do what we want to do. Like you said, we just have to have the political and the social will to do what we need to do. I look at time as being the most valuable resource and not money, right? If I have time, then I can make money. But when you were talking about people making a choice and missing out on classes, okay, look, I made it to class. I'm pulling myself up on my bootstraps, right? I'm going and working that second job. I also need mental health counseling, but that's another bus ride, and something's got to give. There's just not enough hours in a day. I'm not sleeping. I still got homework to do. So those things are important. You have no idea. I mean, a good percentage of our transportation is to mental health services or
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
doctor's appointments and specialist appointments because the need is so great, right? These aren't folks that are just wanting a ride to walk around the mall and hang out. They're taking care of life business.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, when I do a bit of transit planning, and working right now in Albuquerque, for example, and designing a bus, helping to design a bus network for them. And one of the critical places that we need to serve always is the VA, is the unemployment office, is the Social Security office, is the mental health center. And the fact remains, though, if you can only get there once every 700 minutes, it's it's not gonna do you very
It
much good, right? And
kind of a problem.
yeah, yeah, it's a problem. So, you know, just to sort of wrap up, we hope
Can
to get a bill number soon.
Yeah, can you
And
talk about the website here with the transportation justice as you're talking about the bill? Because we didn't go over this at all.
oh yeah, right. So so this is what we call our transportation justice agenda, and it was built in collaboration with the transportation justice folks all over the state that were part of Front and Center. And it really is to reframe our attention to those needs that are going to help the most people, to reframe our attention in terms of the things that we've not built yet, the people that we like left behind. So the two sort of defining challenges of our time really are climate change and equity. And it turns out that transportation has a huge impact in both of those things, right? 45% of our emissions come from the transportation sector, and one third, like I said before, one third of the people in Washington state can't drive. And yet, we don't even know where there are no sidewalks. And we already just spent the last 20 or 30 minutes talking about how little transit there is. And so it's kind of it's kind of bananas that we have this clear solution for these really enormous challenges that we have with greenhouse gases, with climate change, and also with the lack of opportunity that a lot of people have because they are transportation insecure, right? The solution, it's like I said, it's not like it takes a genius, right? We need to build sidewalks and we need to have good buses. These are basic things. And so this report is sort of laying out this vision and this agenda for transportation justice, ways that we can address our climate challenge and ways that we can address our equity challenge in one fell swoop. And basically it has three ingredients here. One is let's build the transit that we need. Well, so let me start from the top here. Basically, what it says is let's stop building highways in Black and brown communities who are already all polluted and suffering from the last wave of highway building that we built in, starting in the 40s and 50s. So I think a lot of people listening probably know the history and have heard the term redlining. But redlining basically was when the federal government basically said, here are after the Great Depression, they said these are places where it is okay to lend money for people to buy and sell houses, and these are places where it's a risk. And guess what places were deemed to be risks, Marwan?
Mm. Would that be in the Black and brown areas?
Correct. So essentially, folks that live there couldn't borrow money to fix up their houses, so the houses went into disrepair. The folks that wanted to buy there to be in community couldn't get a loan to buy there. So then essentially you created this perfect poverty trap, right? And as a result, those places had the lowest property values. So then when maybe a well-intentioned highway designer was like, well, I need to lay down this highway and I'm going to have to purchase land, so let's do it in the most financially efficient way. Where can I buy land for the cheapest? Oh, it turns out that it's right through the Black and brown neighborhoods because they got redlined. They essentially that property got essentially made worthless or worth a lot less. So when all over the country, where you look at where the highways are, they almost invariably go through the Black and brown neighborhoods. So then many years later, 60 or 70 years later, the Washington state passes this bill called Move Ahead Washington that has, $12-13 billion to, what they call maintenance and preservation. And that sounds like, like the same thing, maintenance and preservation. But really, a lot of the maintenance and preservation just means building wider, building more highways. And what that means is putting more traffic in Black and brown neighborhoods, moving or disappropriating more homes, more businesses, more schools, and causing more environmental damage in those neighborhoods that were harmed to begin with. So the first step in the transportation justice agenda is stop the harm, right? Stop. So we have this very, very powerful tool in Washington state called the Environmental Health Disparities Map. And it shows, through a variety of mixes, a variety of indicators to show you, hey, this is where people are most exposed to diesel particulates, and they have the highest rate of cardiovascular disease, and there is the highest poverty and the highest rates of Black and brown population. And all of these things combined show you, oh, this is where people are exposed to a lot of pollution and have the highest vulnerabilities. Out of the 12 highway projects that the Move Ahead Washington bill passed, 7 of them are in the communities that have the highest environmental health disparities in the state today.
Wow.
So yeah, exactly. And so what we're advocating for here in the first thing in the transportation justice agenda is just don't do that. Stop kicking people that have already borne the biggest cost for the way that we do transportation today, right?
When you say it, it sounds so simple. It's like, just stop doing it.
Yeah,
Number
right.
one.
I mean, that's rule number 1, right? Stop digging the hole, stop causing all this harm. There's all of this research that shows that Black and Hispanic people breathe in 50 to 60% more pollution than we create. Right? So which again should be really intuitive, right? Because where do they
Mhm.
put the highways? Right? So
Right.
that the essentially the role of highways in our society has been up until now to take wealthier, whiter people from the suburbs to the high-paying jobs in the center cities. And they do that by going through the Black and brown communities that were the originally red line ones. So that's the first step. The second step is to do the stuff that we're talking about in our bill that we're calling, and that name will hopefully stick, is Better Transit Sooner, which is, let's just make it a priority and focus our attention and focus our creativity and our efforts to expand the reach of frequent and reliable transit so that it can do all of the things that we just got done talking about: get people to work, get people to school, get people to their mental health, um, and uh, and then finally to build sidewalks and to create those investments to close those gaps that are missing, right? Um, One of the other bills that we hope to be running in this session is one that says to the state, "Hey, state, you need to come up with uh, a, a data inventory of where the sidewalks and the curb cuts are, because guess what? Nobody knows."
Mhm.
Nobody has any idea. If you pick any road randomly in the state and said, "Can I use my wheelchair here?" There is no data that will tell you that.
Mm.
And so what we're asking for is that the state take an inventory and create the data for somebody to be able to say, "I'm going to go from point A to point B in an accessible way. Is it possible?" And even further, to be able to say, "What's the route that would take me from point A to point B if I'm using a manual wheelchair? What if I'm using a powered wheelchair? What if I'm blind?" Right? These are, again, it's pretty advanced science, computer science. Actually, it's these amazing researchers at the University of Washington have come up with these ways to create shareable and interoperable and routable data about these things. But we can do it. We know how to do it. We just need to go and do it. So we're asking for, it sounds like a lot of money, $10 million to inventory every single road in the state. But you know what also costs $10 million, Marwan? 3 miles of rural highway with one lane in each direction and no shoulder.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow.
That's it. So, this is all about exactly like you said. Don't let anybody tell you that there isn't money. We're just spending it in the wrong ways. We're repeating these mistakes of the past. We're not listening to the people that I mean, we're so good at amplifying the needs of people that have a lot to begin with, and so good at ignoring the needs of people that have a little.
Paulo, what I see is the failure, I think, from politicians and other folks to see the correlation and the causation of not doing these things, right? They talked
Mm.
about how racism impacted revenue and profits, right? Like
Yeah.
Companies were leaving off trillions of dollars because they weren't, investing in black labor and businesses and things of that nature. And it's like, okay, so if black and brown people are experiencing these carcinogens and pollutions and toxins, right? Well, that's more of us that need, health care, right? Because we're experiencing all these things. Well, then you're looking at why healthcare it costs so much, why folks can get to work, why poverty levels so high, why crime ends up increasing because of access issues, the homelessness issue that is exploding nationwide, and how that plagues especially the black community and men in particular. There's a lot of focus on women and families and kids because that pulls at our heartstrings. But if you look at the numbers, there's a lot of single men out there that are homeless and don't have an opportunity or an option because there are no social programs for that demographic, right? So it was like, if we did these things, we'd actually probably save money on the other end and quite a bit of it, right? I
That's
mean,
right.
the cost that it costs to imprison someone versus give them skills and education and resources, it's just so skewed. But in our minds, it's like, well, no, because I made all the right choices. I pulled myself up from the bootstraps. I didn't have anything. My family did this. And it's like you're missing the whole point, and you're spending so much more than you have to do. If you just did the human thing, there'd be a lot more for everyone. And I just don't see how people miss it.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And cities, like there's obviously cities live and die by the property taxes they collect, right? And
Mhm.
and also by the share of sales tax that they collect. And yet a lot of cities are just ruled by their traffic engineers who only care about getting cars through their city as fast as possible, and thereby create environments where people don't want to spend a lot of time. They don't want to spend a lot of money. It's dangerous to be there. Developers don't want to build things there. And so, we have in this sort of entirely backward sort of value system have valued people's time behind the wheels so much that we're like burning money out in the backyard when it comes to a city's whole budget, right? When you think, yeah, this is, there's well, I don't know if you remember the gentleman, Reverend Larry from Eastside Baptist, who's a member
Mhm.
of the Transportation Justice Working Group at Front and Center that we meet with once a month. The Pastor Willoughby from that church, he gets it. He looks at the road in front of the church is Portland Avenue in Tacoma. It's basically a freeway on the
Mhm.
surface, right? It's 3 lanes of traffic with a turn lane in the middle. It's like you were saying earlier, it's a mile or a half a mile between safe crossings. It's basically, for all intents and purposes, traffic's going 50, 60 miles an hour, and there's a tiny little sidewalk. And guess what? The property values there are really low, and nobody wants to start a business there, and it's really dangerous for people to in the community to get to their church.
Mhm.
And the pastor is like, I want this to be a community that people move into and stay their whole lives, because they can raise kids there, because they, hopefully they can find a place that's affordable, and when they want to move up, they don't have to move out. They can just
Right.
move to across the street, move down the street, right? But what happens is that people live there and then they move out as soon as they get together a little bit of money. And a lot of that is driven by the fact that the main artery through that neighborhood, what some people call a strode. It's a street and a road mushed together, and it does it's like this, this sort of Frankenstein thing that does none of those two things very well. It's a terrible place for you to be outside of your car, and it's a really dangerous place to drive because it's designed like a freeway, but it has all of these distractions, right? It has intersections, it has bus stops that pull up. Seriously, I kid you not, this happens all the time. The bus stop pulls and drops, a dozen kids on one side of the street, and then what do the kids do? They all dash as fast as possible across the street to try to
Yep.
get to the other side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that do? It's ultimately an economic sinkhole. Like because we think it's so important for the person that's behind their car to travel across this area at unimpeded at 55 miles an hour, the city is losing all of this potential. That could be a place where there could be affordable housing. It could be a place where there's a coffee shop. It could be a place where there are all kinds of things that could. And ideally, there's a way to, there's a smart way to say, and we're generating a tax base from here that gets reinvested in the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, but we don't do that. We go and it's somebody was telling me when I was talking about Strode's. Yeah, it was Naire from the Urban League. Have you ever met Naire?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, no, she's terrific. So I was doing this little presentation about Strode's, and she's like, and if you think about it, every single MLK Boulevard in America is a horrible street like that.
Well, not a lie. Not a lie.
Right. So you all were, I think Jeff was saying MLK. I would love to see what MLK in Bremerton looks like. What does it look like?
It's about 2 blocks, and it's basically a homeless encampment.
Oh, all right.
On one side, it's on the back of the Salvation Army, and then on the other side is the Marvin Williams Community Center. And yeah, we've got and many cities have this issue, but we have a real issue here. And again, it's what you were saying before, right? We're just not prioritizing our money in the way that we should, which I honestly believe we could snap our fingers and resolve some of these things almost literally overnight. If we were to, say, it always baffles me for folks that look at American exceptionalism and it's like, built in the USA. So it's like, all right, so let's not outsource. Let's build it here. Let's build homes, right? Let's teach, skills. And now you've got the home builders that are building their own homes. They can be employed to build other homes, right? And let's just invest that way instead of outsourcing all of this, all of these resources, and really kind of build and feed our own ecosystem. And we really could resolve many of these issues.
Yeah.
The solutions are there. We just have to want to do it.
Exactly. And just to sort of put a bow on this whole transportation thing, transit is in crisis all over the country because they can't get enough drivers. So, I don't know why this was a surprise to anybody, but a lot of baby boomers are retiring because they're old, and because they deserve it. They're done with that. And then, a lot more are choosing to retire because of COVID. But transit agencies have not been able to recruit. And that's, there are people that are cutting service. There's many places that every other bus is missed because they can't get a driver.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't pay well, right? And then here in Kitsap, I mean, you can see how infrequent the bus runs. So, that's a big loss of jobs there.
Right. So
yeah, absolutely.
So, I think we fully recognize that if we're going to meet these goals that we're advocating for here, this means a lot of jobs for a lot of people, and it's got to be a lot of jobs for young people because it's their time, right? And these are good jobs. The pay is pretty good. Can always be better, but the pay is, and the benefits tend to be really, really good. And so, just like anything, I think it's really important for the transit agencies, for the unions to go out and to say, hey, being a bus operator, it's a good job. That's a career. Um, and pays, I don't know, $20 to $25 an hour to start. And it's, the transit agencies need to get better at making the training easier to get through. I've heard of like really interesting efforts that some agencies are doing, and I can't remember where exactly, but where they're doing the commercial driver's license training, which takes a long time, right? It takes weeks and weeks and weeks. So they're doing that in prison, so that when,
Really?
yeah, I need to, and I'll look up where that is, and then I'll send it to you. But so they're doing that training, and when people get out, day one, they have a job that pays well. Day one, they can start contributing to society, right? And then there's making sure that we're doing that training at community colleges, making sure that we're going to schools and saying, hey, this is a good career. This is, but also thinking about, like, young people really value flexibility. Oh, here's an interesting thing, right? Is that that sort of a generational divide, is that a lot of young people, the anecdote is, don't want to go and be a bus driver, because even if you smoke weed, and then 3 days later you have a shift, you're obviously not high anymore. Any one of us
Mhm.
who's ever smoked a joint in our lives know that you're not high 3 days later, but your urine test will show up for a month, and then you lose your opportunity to drive. And so there is a new test out that is approved by the Federal Transit Administration, as far as I understand. That's a saliva test that only catches the last 24, 48 hours. But
Really?
that's right. And
Wow.
it does its purpose, right? You don't want
Mhm.
somebody who's drunk driving your bus. You don't
Right.
want somebody who's stoned driving your bus, but you don't want to have to say to somebody, you can never drive a bus because you had a beer when you were watching the game last weekend, right? I mean, it's like, so it's these things of like, oh, well, we have problems to solve, let's go solve them. Somebody figured out a way to do this test, somebody figured out how to do the administration, so that blah blah blah, all these things, and now let's go hire those drivers, right?
Oh,
And
man, that would be aw when you find that out, Paulo, please share that. That would
yeah,
be awesome.
yeah.
Really.
And so, I just, it's a and Rebecca from Front and Center, right? Her whole
Mhm.
family, they're all bus drivers. She's got bus drivers in every agency in the state, basically. And it's a great career. It's really good work. um we need to do a better job of adapting that work for the workforce that's here today, but also changing these rules so that people can take advantage of these opportunities, right?
Mhm. And it sounds fun to me. I mean, I drive, so,
That's right.
I
That's
don't
right.
do it
No,
all the time,
you
but it's fun. It's relaxing, and you feel like you're making an immediate impact in someone's life. That's one of the reasons that I love what we do in regards to case management and food and transportation. It's like it's immediate, it's now, it's tangible, even with the conduit, right? They're getting information right now that they can use and apply to their lives. So, yeah, I'll go live after I drop my person off, and it's just like, oh, it's great. It's the middle of the night. There's really no one out here. It's just, just fills you up, and it's like I'm ready for the next day.
That's right. That's
Next day's
right.
Christmas. Let me get to bed so I can wake up tomorrow and do it all again. I'm excited.
I'll never forget. I was in this little town in the Bay Area. I forget what the town was called. I was there for a project, and it was a long time ago. It was like 10 years ago. And I took the bus to the because I was doing a project at a hospital, and I took the bus, and it was sort of the middle of the day, after the school had ended, and the bus driver was a really grumpy guy, right? He was a grumpy guy. You could tell he was a grumpy guy. But then this girl got on, and something was up with her, and he like stopped the bus, and he's like, "You all right? You're good? What's going on?" And I could tell that, she got on the bus every day with him, and he seemed grumpy to me, but he was checking up on her, right?
Yeah.
And and it's one of those things of like, these are the kind of ties that make up a community, right?
And there used to be so many more stories of that in the
Yeah,
past. We have them because we're doing transportation, but,
yeah.
people love their bus drivers. I think that's our one regret this year for Transportation Equity Day is that we didn't get a chance to reach out to Kitsap Transit and get a list of bus drivers that we could give awards to, because of the impacts, on the lives of those that
Mm,
that ride their routes.
yeah,
So we missed
yeah.
that opportunity. But I wanna wrap up. We've been going, for quite a while. I appreciate you coming on last minute. You are awesome, Paulo. Let me go ahead and give you
Oh, thank you.
a super horn for that.
I'm
Thank you
I'm
for the
so I'm so
education.
glad that our paths crossed, Marwan. This is really, it's a real pleasure for me, and I really admire the work that you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, back at you, I said I learn, this is not we've been so focused with our head down on doing the work and serving people individually. We never thought of branching out and talking to city council or to the mayor or to Congress, we just or to the legislature. We just never thought about that. And it's so important. And it was something that we needed to put into our toolbox and gather other like-minded people together and say, okay, so how can we do this better and advocate? I spoke at city council a few weeks ago, and it was like, the ultimate goal is, G2 transportation doesn't exist because there's an adequate enough public transportation that we're not needed. But right now, we are needed, and we're not being used to our potential. And we're a necessity right now. We're filling a really important void. But, in 15, 20 years, it'd be great if, G2, there's a van in a museum somewhere. And it's like, remember back
That's right.
when G2
That's
used to
right.
do this? And we
That's
can
right.
get there. And so it's
Yeah.
it's just adding on to what it is we already do to try to move to that end goal ultimately. And it's equity through transportation for all, amongst all the other things that we do. Any final things that you want to shout out?
Well, no, so I know that Jeff wants to cover one more thing. I'm going to say goodbye. I guess the last thing I want to say is, when we do this again, let's do one on electrification, because I'm working on the Washington State Transportation Electrification Strategy, and it really intersects with all of these issues, and it has the potential to it has the potential to make things a lot worse, and it has the potential to make things a lot better. And we need to choose which path we go down. So I'm going to sign off. This is a real pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank-
Paulo. And I got a lot of questions about electrification. So, because I'm like this on there, I'm getting information from both sides, and I don't have any way to sift through and find out what's true and what's accurate and how much it is. Because mainstream media is so polarizing, right? They're either all the way for it or they're all the way against it, and it's just talking points, and there's no through line to or nuance in the discussion. So
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
looking forward to that.
No, I think it's a really interesting discussion, and it's got it's actually not at all separate from this idea of transportation justice. It could, you know it's again, we're shaping, it's like, where we are, we're like at the beginning of, in the 1930s, when they were planning the interstate highway system, right? The massive investment of public dollars that shaped people's lives for years to come, for good and for ill.
Mhm.
um a lot of times for bad, right? Look at the climate change is one clear outcome of that, right? And we're in that moment again. And I know that you guys have been going for 4 hours now, so I'm going to shut up. But this was a real pleasure, and Marwan, anytime. I'm happy to, shoot the breeze here with you.
Oh,
Anytime.
well, I appreciate it. Well, maybe we'll have to do a fun show where we just talk about interests and things of that nature.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you.
Be
Thank you,
well.
Paulo.
How do I hang up? You'll hang up for me, right?
Well, there's if you just want to close the tab, you can.
Oh, all
You
right.
see it up there?
Yep, got it.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Man, we have had a full show. This has just been fantastic. I believe I've got one more thing to share with you. Go to the bottom when I get there. Okay. All right, let me go ahead and pull that up. Man, there's been so much. I want to recap it, but it might take me 30 minutes just to recap all the stuff. You know, just know the stuff that's going on in Tacoma is so important. If you have time to get out there and advocate, hold the sign, stand in solidarity, that would be huge to do that. Let's see. Is it this right here? Is this what you wanted me to show? Aha, good. I got it. All right. So this is again super important. I want you to please do me a favor. First favor is subscribe to the Conduit and hit the notification bell so you never miss when we go live, right? This was literally, and I got to give Jeff a round of applause because he put this together behind the scenes, and he's not even in this state. So he gets 2 of these. Again, there is enough work for everyone to do, and it's going to take all of us doing the work to make the change. So the first thing, subscribe to the Conduit. If you'd like to donate to the Conduit, we could do a lot more, but that's the very first thing. The second thing that I want you to do is to go ahead and bookmark this link, which will bring you here, and this is in the description. And why this is so important, is, again, this has been curated for you to make it a little bit easier. And this pulls together bills that need your support, right? So bills in the Washington State House of Representatives. And we talked about many of these bills here. They already have the links that are pulled up. Let me go ahead and click on one just to show you. These are things that we went over, right? So it's going to take you right there. You want to comment on the bill. You saw me how I was doing the autofill, right? It's that fast. I mean, literally in seconds. I'm doing it as I'm talking, right? It's all here. Concerning labor and income and incarcerated persons, guaranteed basic income, protecting tenants from excessive rent, concerning solitary confinement, unemployment program for undocumented workers, protecting tenants from excessive rent, protecting manufactured home communities, concerning legal financial obligations, improving access and removing barriers to jail-based voting, to stop making disabled people pay back benefits. Good Lord. Concerning foreclosure, protect it just on and on and on. And they may not all resonate with you, but for the ones that do, please go in, click on. If you can't do a public testimony, if that seems too scary, you can write in your comments what you would say, right? And please follow along with that. These are the bills that are in the Washington State Senate, right? So you got your HBs, your House bills, and you have your Senate bills. Again, unemployment for undocumented workers, protection for mobile home communities, right? So you want to do both. Make sure that you get both of them there. A sample is there for you, but I just went through it. You hit send, and that's it. That's it. Super easy to do. So please bookmark this. Bremerton, Port Orchard votes. The Washington legislature is now in session. This is the time. Again, Black Student Union, G2, the Conduit, God's Broken Home University. We're going to be transporting a bunch of our youth out to the Capitol building on February 20th. Now, Civil Survival is going to be there. We're going to document it. We'll be going live during that event. So do tune in for that. But we're doing something different. Our birthday, G2 turns 5 years old in 6 days on February 8th. And when I started this organization, um, this is this wasn't even anywhere near. This wasn't even on the map of what G2 would be doing. But now we're doing this, and it's important work. And that is what growth is, right? You start off, you have a plan, and you go about doing the work. And as you do the work, you find out that there's more need. You can do this, you can't do this, you should do this. But we want to grow to be able to do this. And now we find ourselves here. It is very empowering to be a part of this movement in whatever capacity that we can do. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? And so if we're all together having our one bite at a time, that elephant doesn't stand a chance. So help me eat that elephant, y'all. Little barbecue sauce, just be delicious. There's other videos here that are important here. I can see things, links from the Conduit, which is great. And just things that are really important, okay? And again, it doesn't matter if you're already for it. Oh, you can even register to vote here, right? Like literally making it just nice and easy for you. So share this out, staying informed, news, who represents you, who are your representatives, local groups and resources and educational links, all of these things, right? City council, county commissioners, Kitsap Transit, state legislature, the shipyard was on there. Again, kudos to Jeff for putting this all together. This is the brainchild of one person and the support of a few others to make this happen. I mean, think of how impactful and powerful that we are as individuals, and how much more we can be if we join together in solidarity and take the walk together. Right? It's not lonely, and to get together we'll make it. And if we fall short, we've made it a little bit farther for the next generation, for our children and our children's children. So that is my soapbox. This was the Conduit Legislative Roundup. This was a lot of fun, super informative. I've learned a tremendous amount of information over the last 3 hours. So just really important. You have everyone's information. I'm assuming that when uh excuse me, Jeff gets the chance, he will be editing these videos down so they're in smaller clips. And what's great is for those that maybe don't find out about this for a couple of weeks and they've missed this legislative session, it gets you into a good position for next year for advocacy, right? It's like you may be watching this for the first time and it's like, oh man, this is really hitting my heart. I want to do something about this, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. There's only 2 days left. Don't fret, right? Go ahead and educate yourself now. Get connected with organizations, get connected with great individuals, and be ready for the next year, right? The fight is not going to stop, in April, right? It's going to continue on and continue on and continue on. But the people that we voted for that are in the House and Senate need our continued support in order to bring the change and then also sustain that change and not have that change expire, right? Or become antiquated where it's not doing enough or what it used to, how it was intended, right? And it needs to be changed and tweaked. So we have to continue to support our politicians that we do elect. We do have to continue to support those House bills and Senate bills that we do push forward and we do speak out about, right? And those that we're against, right? For or against. For me, it's just important that you are active politically. It doesn't matter what side that you come down on. For me, that's not important. Just your activation and your participation is what's important to me. But again, I thank you all. Thank you for staying with me for this time. I appreciate you tuning into the Conduit. Again, please subscribe. Get this out to your organizations. One of the things that we see that happens is folks that we're connected to, right? Let's say Rob at G2, he subscribes to the Conduit, but he doesn't encourage the rest of his staff to subscribe. So only he's subscribed. So tell your office to please subscribe to the Conduit, right? It's free, doesn't cost anything to hit that subscribe button. But I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. We'll see you in Olympia, everyone. Bye-bye.